Let's get started. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Bob Schwartz, and I am here to MC this event. We want to make sure that we establish some credibility, and the best way to do that is showcase your experience. And so you can see we've won a lot of awards from a Broadcom perspective. And then on the bottom, we have 1,500 engagements, 775 upgrades, and 150 conversions. So yes, we do know our stuff. Our goal is to provide you with advice, recommendations, and so forth and so on. So I have 25 years experience, and so does this organization, Automic Integrations. What we have here is some of the integrations. So there are 400 plus application integrations that Automic can work with. The ones you see on the screen are the ones that there's a little more know-how, a little more documentation, white papers, and so forth that have been published from a Broadcom perspective. We like to take their information and kind of repurpose it from our perspective so that you can come to our site and you can see everything you need to see. We continue to provide you value and content. We are moving on to our first integration demonstration.
All right, so I'm so happy and excited to be here to show you this amazing integration, the Azure Blob integration. So first off, make sure we have a ground level set here, a foundation set. What is Azure and the Blob storage? Blob is essentially like a file system on the cloud. So similar to how your computer has the file explorer, you're able to store files there. So EXTs, TXTs, any other file extension can go up into your Blob storage. Now, why are people using it? Well, this gives you a place to connect to. It's not a singular place where all this data is. It's a place in the cloud that I can connect to from any computer and get that information, bring it down to the computer I need, or even interact with that information up in the cloud. So what I'll start off here by doing is I'll share my screen and show you the marketplace. So if you're unfamiliar with the marketplace, it's marketplaceatomic.com. You're more than welcome to go there. It is open for anyone to see. You can go here and see all the integrations and agents and other action packs that Automic has available. So there's a little overview, just going to go over just what happens in the marketplace here. A little overview of what the integration or the agent is, all the features that are available to you with this agent. And so these are features, they're going to say like, it doesn't say exactly, oh, never mind, it does, jobs. So these are all the jobs that you can use in this integration. It gives you a link to the documentation if they have different versions inside of 24. So you can see here we have a few different versions of 24 and version 21. And then lastly, the compatibility matrix. So what do you need to run this agent? Next, what we're going to do is take a look at, I have set up a workflow for us to look at with all of the job integrations for Azure. So high level, what is this job? What does this workflow do? Well, the workflow is going to take a file that is on the same Linux box that the agent is running on. It's going to upload that into the cloud. Then we're going to check that it made it there. We're going to make sure that it's there in the cloud storage. Then we're going to copy that file to a separate container, a blob storage, so we can have more than one blob. And then we're going to download that. While also downloading it, we're going to delete and monitor for other things. And we'll get more into the nitty-gritty of what those exactly are doing in here just a second. But let's first take a look at the upload. So there's a lot of things here. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, but what we do have is the connection object. So this connection object, all it takes is however you're going to connect to your Azure instance. And what does that mean? So what you're going to use is the URL or however else the Azure would like you to connect. And in this instance, what we've used is the URL to it. We also usually have a token or a certificate. I believe Azure lets you use either one. You also can use IAM permissions. So that's how you're able to connect to the Azure Blob storage. You can select your Blob type. In this case, we're using Blob. Then what we're going to do is look at the container. So the containers, so we have a blob and then there's containers. Containers are essentially folders inside of your blob. One of the most powerful things about this integration is that there's these little ellipses here. So if I had more than one container in here, you'll be able to see, it wouldn't just say Atomic Demo, it would say Atomic Demo 1, 2, 3, 4, all the different containers I can choose from. And so you can just click on the one you want and click choose, and that will place it in here. There's no need to remember, oh, what was that? I need to go back and check it. I can just, in Automic, not having to leave one place, set the container that we're using. Next, after that, what we're going to do is use this source file path. And so since this is an upload job, we're looking for the directory that we are using on the Linux box to find that txt file. In this case, we're using txt files for clarity, but as I mentioned earlier, you're more than welcome to upload anything. Any file you have on your computer, you're more than welcome to upload that. Now, if I wanted to upload everything inside of a folder, I wouldn't have to put this upload test.txt in there. I could just throw a little asterisk and it would upload all of them. File filters, so if I did throw an asterisk in there, I can filter for specific files inside of that directory. All right, same with this target directory here. So in your container, so container is a folder, and there's folders inside your containers. So what this is essentially I have a folder named Atomic Test, and this is going to place our file named upload test.txt inside this directory here up in the cloud. Now, if I wanted to rename the file from upload test.txt to say completed upload test.txt, I could do that right here with the blob name. Now, if I do throw that in there and say, oh, completed upload test.txt, and I do have overwrite selected, then what it would do is check if there's already a file in that location. If there is, it's going to overwrite it. If not, we're not going to overwrite that. And it would return back to you with an error on the Atomic side. Now, the retry timeout, what does that mean? So it's if we're unable to connect to the Azure instance in the cloud, what we're going to do is retry for X amount of minutes. In this case, the default is 0. So if it doesn't connect immediately, it's going to just tell you, hey, something's wrong. So that's a little bit about the upload job. Let's go over to the exist. Exist is very similar. These first two are the exact same, as I mentioned, connection and the container, same ellipses there. What we can do here, though, is take a look and find all of the files that are txt inside of a container. Now, what we're doing is we're looking inside, as I mentioned, with the query parameters, we're looking inside the folder Atomic Test. So container, Atomic Demo, and then inside of that, we have Atomic Test. And then we're going to say, hey, grab all of the txt files inside of it. We're going to use regex. You're able to use that with most of the integrations today. So if you're familiar with that, you're more than welcome to use it, and it's a very powerful tool. We also can retrieve the blob names. So if we check if it exists, if we want to not only check if it exists, but also see, hey, we want this to be passed into the report, we can put the name in the report server. So if we ran this, you would see the name in the report after the job finished. All right, next we're going to look at this copy here. So copying, essentially what you're doing is you're moving between two containers. So in this instance, we're moving to the same container. So you have two options, move between two different containers or the same container. And you're not only moving, but you're copying, taking the exact same what we had and then moving it to somewhere else. But as we have with the previous job we were just looking at, you can change the name of the folder that you're moving to. So in this case, we're looking at test.txt for the source blob container, or directory, excuse me. So we're looking for it. And if we wanted to, we can also click on the ellipses here and see all of the files available. So we can see all of the files that are inside of the source container, which is the Atomic demo here. We still have the file filters, same as prior. If you would like to make this more of a parameterized or dynamic filter, that's what this is for. So if we wanted to change that up, we are more than welcome to. And then we have the destination container. Where are we setting it to? Same container in this instance, and then target directory. So same as before, container, directory, and then file. Then we go and set the name. Check if we're overwriting. If so, then we're going to overwrite the file that we found. If not, we're going to cancel and skip the job. Delete source file after copy. So this is if you would like to, rather than using this, or excuse me, rather than using a move job, you're more than welcome to do this as well. And what that will do is, as mentioned, it'll delete this txt and up in here from the source. Same retry timeout as prior. And we'll go on to the download now. So download is pretty similar to upload, just the exact opposite. Same connection object container, source file path of what we're grabbing from the cloud. We can, same file filter as before, if you're trying to do a dynamic files there. And then we do the target directory. So currently, as mentioned prior, we're on a Linux box. That's why we have opt RMT, all these forward slashes here. Then we do the target name. So same as before, if we wanted to change the name, which we are doing here, we can do download test.txt, and that's how it's going to be downloaded in the cloud. We also have enable overwrite, so if it's already there, we can overwrite it. Retry timeout, same as prior. Now we also have this other feature here called file permission parameters. Now this is dynamic based off of which OS you're using. So in this instance, we're using Linux. So we're doing the file permissions of how Linux does them. So 775, we can set the owner and the group. Now, if I was to use Windows, I would just, rather than 775, I can set the read, write, and execute, R, W, and X right in here. Same file owner, you just put the name of the administrator, for instance, or if any other users you have on that Windows machine. And file group, I'm pretty sure, is only available for Linux. Now, if on invalid permission settings, you can have the job fail or succeed, depending on what you would like out of the download. All right, let's look at delete. So delete's very simple. All we're doing is looking for the container and then the source of the file that we like to delete. In this case, we're deleting copy test. There's no reason to have a whole bunch of copy tests in our blob. All right, and lastly, but certainly not least, we have the monitor tab, or job, excuse me. So what we have here is a little different than we normally have, which is the monitor job type. So we have generate, update, and create. Now, create, it just monitors, was something created with this name? Update, was this touched? Basically, what does that mean? Do I interact with that file in any way? This job will let us know. Now, generate is both of them. You're going to doing create. If it's created, it'll let you know, or if it's updated, it'll also let you know. Container, same as prior. Then we have the blob name. So we're just looking for the upload txt that we had. We're not using regex here just because, but you're more than welcome to if you would like. Steady state, so this is checking how long am I waiting for that connection back from the Azure instance. So in this case, the default is 60 seconds, it'll wait. And then sleep interval is 60 seconds. So it's going to send out the signal every 60 seconds. It's going to, if the signal takes 60 seconds to get back to it, it takes 45 seconds. It's not going to error out. And then it'll wait 60 seconds again before it sends that signal out again to check on the job. Query parameters, very similar as before. If you were looking to do anything specific with the job, you're more than welcome to do that. And then the return the file URI, that puts it into the report. Okay, now that we've kind of gone over all of the jobs available in the integration, let's take a run at this workflow. So, and just as mentioned prior, just to reiterate, we're uploading a file to the Azure Blob storage. We're going to check if that file got there by if it exists. Then we're going to copy it, download that copy. Then we're going to delete the copy, and then we're going to monitor that the upload is still there. All right, let's execute this and see what happens. All right, I might have been a little too slow on that. Yep, looks like I was. They do run very quickly. So what looks like everything's running correctly here. And if we refresh, yep, perfect. Download is done. So you might be saying, why is the monitor still running? Well, the monitor is going to keep running until it sees something and it's going to put that in a report. So this is a job that's going to forever run until you have it, unless you would like it to stop at some point. That's a little bit about the Azure integration. Let's hop right into the S3 here. First off, let's just start again, same as Azure. What is S3? What is going on? Who's using it and why? Well, S3 is also a file storage cloud platform. It's pretty similar to Azure. It's just Amazon or Microsoft. Which one are you using? So it's a file extension in the cloud. If you wanted to upload analytics, backups, archives, or just even everyday apps, you can do that and connect to it from anywhere. So that's a little bit about what S3 is. And who's using the integration? Well, those are kind of some of the reasons you would integrate with S3. So if you wanted to connect between them, if you had an Automic instance, you wanted to have multiple connections between these agents, you could submit files as a way of doing FTP. I'm going to take a look here, and we're going to take a look at the marketplace again for the S3 agent. So it's very similar stuff in here as well. We can or in the overview tab, we have a little video here talking about what is the S3 agent integration and how is it used. They don't necessarily go into a look of what is happening. They just talk about high level. Thankfully today we're going to be talking a little bit about what's going on under the hood. So a little overview as mentioned, same with the features, all the jobs that are available to you, and also how that authentication works. Little documentation link here, same as before, all the versions, and then finally the compatibility matrix. All right, let's head on over. So as you can see, I have made a workflow for us to take a look at here. So high level, what's going on here? So we have an upload job, very similar to the Azure. We're uploading from the Linux box. So this S3 agent is also on that same Linux box we have before, the VM. So we're uploading from that to the cloud. Then we're going to monitor that job. And while we're monitoring it, we're going to move. Then we're going to download, check if it exists, and copy that job all at the same time. Then what we're going to do is delete the upload, delete the move, and then delete the copy. So what's different about this current workflow is I am leveraging the object-oriented sense of Automic here. All of these three jobs on the end are the exact same. The only difference is I'm passing different variables into them. So I just wanted to point that out while we're talking about the high-level overview. So let's take a look at what the upload job is. So very similar to Azure with the connection here. So we just do the, in AWS, if you have an S3 bucket, they're going to give you a URL to connect to that. Now you're going to throw that URL into the connection object here, and then you're going to tell it how to connect. In this case, you're going to use a token. After that, with the connection secured, we're going to do the region. So AWS also is region-based. When you spin up your S3 bucket, you'll see which region it is in, and you just place that in there, plain text. You can use regex. All of the options, all of the integrations, excuse me, between the two that we're looking at today for Azure and S3 are going to use and have that ability to use regex. Next, we're going to take a look at the source file path, exact same as what we were looking at earlier. So we're just putting in the Linux box with the directory and then the file that we want to upload. Next, if you're thinking, hey, what's a bucket? Bucket is the exact same thing as a blob. So it's just that high level directory. Next, we're going to look at the destination file path. We also have that ellipses, as I had mentioned. I forgot to say that. And destination file path. So that is going to be, all right, there's our folder that's inside the container. Next, we're going to look at the file inside of it. So the upload test.txt, that's where we're going to place it inside the cloud. Same query parameters as before. If you were looking to do anything with, I want to maybe number off like, oh, this is upload test 1, 2, 3, 4, anything like that. Next, we're going to look at here is the failed operation parameters. So if it fails to put it up in the cloud, we're going to retry it, yes or no. That's just a little toggle here. How many times are we going to retry it? How many times, or excuse me, how long are we going to do to delay the retry? So this is in minutes, by the way, here. So we're going to wait a minute before we try again. Then we're going to check for overwrites. And then what are we going to do on overwrites? So overwrite existing files. That's what we have selected here, but we can also fail the job and skip the operation if we would like to. Then at the very last here, we have the encryption. So if you would like to use a specific kind of encryption, you're more than welcome to do that as well. All right, let's take a look at the monitor. So what we're doing here is we're going to monitor the copy test.txt. We have the same kind of monitor job types from the Azure monitor. So create, update, and generate. They're all the exact same as prior. So generate is both of these two, and create is if it's created, update is if it is touched. Region, same region as before. The region only changes if you're using a different connection object, or if you had the connection object pointed to an S3 bucket and you moved the bucket between different regions, that's also available, or a reason to change the region here. Now, we also have the bucket name, same as before, just checking that, and then the file name. In this case, if I wanted to throw in copy underscore test and then a /, that would put it inside of a folder named copy test, and then the file will be placed inside that folder. But just wanted to point that out real quick since it wasn't in there. Then we can also use regex as previously stated. Now the steady state, same as the Azure job. It's how long are we waiting for that connection back, and then the sleep interval. So how long are we waiting in between each check? Query parameter exactly the same as before, as previously mentioned. And the return file URI. So if we needed to get that, it's going to be put in the report for us. Same with the encryption here. We can use a specific algorithm and then a key if we would like. All right, next we're gonna move over to the, move. Same connection, region, looking at the bucket again, then same with the regex commands if we would like. Now we're gonna have the source file path. So just as previously seen, since we're moving between two buckets if we would like, but what we're doing here is we're just going to move it between different folders. So we can see we have upload test and it's taking upload test, and then we're going to look at this, the same bucket, destination bucket name from the source bucket name, and then the destination file path. So we're moving it now into move test, and it's going to be named move test. Same query parameter as before, all the same failed operation parameters, and then that server-side encryption parameter. All right, yeah, so next we'll look at the download. So download, as mentioned previously, very, very simple. Connection, region, and then the bucket that we want to grab from, the source file path that we're going to download from, and then the destination where we would like to download that file to. In this case, as I mentioned, we're on a Linux box, so we're going to be using Linux file paths. Now what happens if we retry count, retry and delay, very exact same as our previous retries. Now we also have the file permissions like for the Azure download that we had seen. And then at the very bottom here, the server encryption. All right, next we'll take a look at the exist. So exist, super easy. We just check if the bucket, and then we look for the txt that we would like to. Availability of using regex, and then the query parameter. Same with the encryption key still. All right, getting down there, but on the copy, similar to the move, we're going to take a source bucket and then we're going to do a destination bucket. In this case, as mentioned, they're going to be the same. So what we're doing here is we're moving just between different folders. So we're doing move test.txt to then copy test and copy test.txt. Same query parameter, and then all the failed and retry operations if we'd like. Same with the server-side encryption. And finally, but certainly not least, the delete. So as I had mentioned, we are using the atomic parameters here. And so we're using a variable. So this variable, all I have to do in the previous job is pass in what this variable should be. And as you can see, it's named change. And so what this will do is pass in the directory, the file directory, the file path to the file that we would like to delete in the cloud. If we would like to, though, we could also check and see which ones are already there. Looks like copy test is visible. So if we wanted to, we could click that and click choose, and it would place that in here. Same with the retry. We can retry, count, and delay if we would like, and then go back. All right, that's kind of all of them right now. So let's just take a quick look at what happens when we run it. We'll execute this. And there we are. Looks like we got it at a good time here. So, yep, as we can see, the monitor is active, and then we're waiting for these to start. If we refresh, yep, looks like they have started and finished. So just another quick overview: upload, move, download, exist, copy, and then we're deleting all the things that we did so that we're not filling up our S3 bucket. What we're going to be doing here is talking about Automic and Kubernetes. So the Kubernetes integration agent. But first, let's say, what is Kubernetes? Kubernetes is a platform that you can launch on a virtual machine. And what it will do is it will dynamically deploy, scale, and manage all your images, containerized applications, microservices, anything along those lines. Now, how does it integrate with Automic? Well, we can execute command jobs, scale deployment jobs, and then run jobs. Now, something we'll talk a little bit more about later on this topic here is the difference between Kubernetes jobs and Atomic jobs, because there is a difference, but we're going to be saying jobs in Kubernetes and Atomic a lot. So you're going to have to stick with me here for a second. And I'm just going to show us again, the marketplace. So this is exactly where you can find and see everything that I'm talking about. As mentioned, the overview with the video, and then what Kubernetes is and how it integrates with Automic, then the features that it's given us with the documentation here and here, what the versions are, and then the compatibility matrix, also with the download there. Okay, let me start with this. What we've been showing you is kind of hello worlds, this is how you use the integration. This is the basic, as I said, hello world of using Azure AWS. Well, what we've done here is put together a real world scenario of using Kubernetes. So don't worry, we will also be going over all the integration and jobs along with Kubernetes, but we'll also be saying, hey, this is how you could potentially use it in your workflow. Quickly, we're just going to talk about what is this workflow doing? So we have an exist. We're going to check if a file exists in the cloud, our Azure for instance in this case. Then we're going to download that down to that Linux box. And then we're going to read it with our Unix agent, read that file, the contents from that file into Automic, store it as a variable, and then pass it to our Kubernetes job here. Now, what it'll do is take that variableized content, put it inside the job description of a Kubernetes job, and then run that job on our Kubernetes instance on a different VM. Lastly, over here, we have our scale deployment. On top of that, Kubernetes, so it has containers, nodes, pods, and jobs. Now, this scale deployment, what it will do is look at all of our deployments, and a deployment is similar to a container. We have a deployment, it's an image, and then a container is how many times, or it's what's storing that image, and then we're scaling that is how many containers we have. So in this instance, we're going to have 3 or 5 deployments, and then we can scale it. We're scaling it here, and then we are sending a command with this job here to all those pods, and then we can get some information back in the report. So what we can do here is we're going to look at the exist job, just showing off what we have going on, the connection to our Azure, the container that we're using, as you can see, then the blob name, which is kubedeploy.yaml. And so Kubernetes uses YAML, Helm charts, and JSON, I believe, as well. Those are all options. The YAML and the JSON are how you deploy jobs. All right, then we can download. So we're going to download that, all stuff we've seen before with the Azure. We're just downloading it to where the Unix agent can read it, read the contents of that file. Then we're going to read it with this script here, store it into this variable, and then on our run Kubernetes job, so this is where we're getting to the Kubernetes jobs, we have our connection to the Kubernetes agent. This is not to the agent. This connection object connects to where the Kubernetes lives on a different virtual machine. The agent is not where the Kubernetes is. The agent is where the Unix and Azure and AWS agents are all on the same machine there. So this is going to connect our agent to that other VM that holds the Kubernetes instance. Now we have namespaces here. So in this case, we're using default. We also can run something on the system if we would like, and then we have a few other options as well. In this case, we're going to use default. So default and the namespace that we're running them on, this is going to be containers that are inside of here will be used to run the job. So then we have the job name. So the job name is something that we can use to keep consistent in Automic. Now, if you're familiar with Kubernetes, oftentimes the jobs don't always have the same name because you're not going to, if you want to have the same job run multiple times at the same time, you can't have them have the same name. So in this case, what we do is keep a single source of truth at Automic. And then in here, what we can do, so this is where we're deploying that YAML content from the Unix read. And so we're able to dynamically deploy a different Kubernetes job based off of what is in our Azure instance. Here's these types here that I was talking about. Oh, wait, it looks like JSON, YAML. If we had a file location, we could do that too. And then SCM if we like. Okay, lastly, what we can have here is a variable. So what I can do is say seconds. And then if I want to say, okay, let's just wait for 45 seconds, then all I'd have to do is place wherever I would like to use this variable inside of the job definition. I could just place seconds, and I can have a single source of truth right here on Automic with the variables. Lastly, if you like Kubernetes to clean up the job for you. So if the job ends, do you want all that information wiped away and cleaned up, or do you want it to stick around? Sometimes you want those jobs to leave a little bit of information or connect to other instances, which is kind of defeating the point of Kubernetes, but hey, we all have instances where that is necessary. All right, so that's a little bit about the run job, so running a job in Kubernetes. And just to clarify, in case I maybe forgot, or just in case to really drive home that point, Automic jobs are living here. They're going to be running things in Automic. A Kubernetes job is another job type that we're going to send over to the Kubernetes instance, and that will run information and then report back to the Automic job. So they're two separate things, but they're connected by how Automic is using them right here. Now, as mentioned, we're looking at a scale deployment. So we can see the default and then the deployment name. Default, as mentioned prior, we can see all the namespaces that we have available, and then the deployment name. So this is showing us how many or what deployments we have available to us, and then how many replicas are showing of that. So those are the containers that we were talking about earlier. On this one, we have 3 containers. Now we can scale this. So if I want to say put 5 here and save that and go back, we can also look at, then what we'll see when we run this is 5 returns from this next job, which is the execute command Kubernetes job. And so what we can do is, same as before, connection namespace. We're looking at all the namespaces. Now, the command that we would like to run in all the pods. Now, I have selected all pods here. So this is going to run on all the pods that is running on that Nginx deployment test that I had previously just shown you. We can use a label selector and field selector to prioritize which deployments we would like to interact with. Now, by clicking any pod, we can also select which pod names we'd like to point out and the container name that we would like to point out. All right, that was a lot, but let's see what happens when we run it. So when we execute this, I might have been a little bit too slow on that. Oh, perfect. Okay, so yeah, we saw it existed in the cloud, we downloaded it, then we read the file contents, and then we gave it to that run job. And then after we can see that this job is still running, now what's going to happen here, and the reason it's not done running is because the job we're passing to it, I think if I remember correctly, it runs for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, this job is going to end with an okay ended normally status because the Kubernetes job is going to report back to this job here, and it'll say, hey, I ended perfectly fine, no issues, and then we'll see that in the report. Now, what we have here is a scale deployment. Remember, we had set that to 5. Previously, it was 3. If I right-click on here and open the report, we can see that we have 5 different commands listed here from those 5 different pods. And this is the output of that command that we gave it. And so that is a little just about the Kubernetes integration.
The Apache Airflow is a really hot item as well, and has been for quite some time because it has its own ability to do kind of some rudimentary scheduling and such. And so a lot of folks have Apache and they use it a lot for their day-to-day automation of some of the development activities. A lot of developers like it because it's almost like a chat or a cron on steroids. And so the idea around it is Automic can still be the manager of managers with the Apache Airflow. So a lot of folks are using it as we can still have Automic integrate with Airflow, and then it can still do what you like it to do from a development perspective on automating some of those activities, yet you still have the centralized orchestrators, if you will, and you can still have your operations and all the things that you've worked to establish from an Automic perspective still be intact. And so again, that's a really popular one. We're going to slide that one on to the next webinar. Can our download destination be network share when using a Windows agent host? So his answer was yes, as long as it's connected and available.
These plugins and we have problems, are we able to just reach out to you guys? Who do we reach out to contact for troubleshooting those?
Feel free to send us an email. I mean, we do it quite often, so we can give you some pointers. And you can always open up a ticket as well, but we may be able to get you the answer pretty quickly.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you guys so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you.